do 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 do. Oh
Oh
my
my
gosh,
gosh,
there
there.
it goes. There goes another one. And oh my god, I believe
Believe
yes.
yes.
Oh, I
Oh,
did
I
that
did
wrong.
that wrong.
Top.
Top.
Now we're
Now
live.
we're live.
There we go. Other than that one. Good. I want to introduce our guest today, Charlie Humphrey, who I know from all over, compassionate points of the internet that we cross paths in the night, if you will.
Compassionate.
Right?
That's the second time I've heard that word this week with my name in it in the same sentence.
Kind of nice, isn't it? I like the.
Yeah,
I'll take that. You know what? I'll take
right,
compassionate. That's
right.
definitely. It's interesting. So I started off on this journey, digging into the compassionate corners of the universe, and the hardest part was realizing that the compassionate corners of the universe didn't get along with each other.
They really don't.
Like,
They really don't. They get so hung up.
right. That's a fake Buddha quote.
That they get so hung up. Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
Lao Tzu said they get hung up, actually.
They get so hung up.
I need to
With
put that up as a Lao Tzu post.
That'd be fun. I think I saw a post of yours, like and somebody called it out as like fake Buddha quote,
Yeah, I get
and
that a lot.
I enjoyed that they gave the
I
like
do too. I love the
the
conversation.
actual, because I was able to look at what you had posted and like the actual text there and compare and be like, I don't know, pretty much says the same thing.
Right.
Well, and the word if so we've got this moderator. She's an amazing. She's going to be coming on soon to talk to us. D Love. And
Yeah, yeah.
D Love, there was one day somebody called me out on what they said was a fake Buddha quote, and she pulled out like 5 different translations and said which one and I was wanting to know which one they thought was right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can't find it. I see the Dhammapada all over the place
Right.
in all of these groups, and I can't find the translation that I read in college. I have no knowledge of
Right.
it, but it's the best one that I ever read. And everything else, I don't know. They get so hung up in, I don't know, the dogma of their translation, it seems like. But this one was so simple and so just cut to the bone that, like, I don't know, it just made perfect sense. And there was nothing to get hung up on. It was cool.
Right.
I wish I
Right.
could find it.
In the end, it's just like this really cool self-help book.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It just shows you how to be a person.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the big first question. So Charlie,
Right.
where are you from?
Let's see. Where am I from? I grew up in New York, in Seacliff. It's a tiny little town on Long Island, like 1 square mile.
Okay.
Like little Victorian village. Um, like a lot of artists lived there. Um, oh, it was a beautiful place. Overlooking Hempstead Harbor, the Long Island Sound.
Oh wow.
We were a 30-minute train ride into Penn Station.
Right. The city's right there, but you're not in the city. And plus
But you're not in it, yeah.
Plus you got the
And it
view.
wasn't like a real suburb, because it was all these beautiful old Victorian houses. I mean, the house I grew up in, I don't know, I think it was built in the late 1800s.
Oh,
Was
wow.
the carriage house for the really big Victorian next door,
Right.
And eventually the properties had been separated, and it was so cool. Stained glass windows, and
So like living literally in the middle of history that you can feel
yeah,
that yeah,
it
connected.
was a cool town. It was a really cool town. Gaslight and gingerbread was kind of the town motto.
Okay.
Those little details on the houses, and then we had these guys. They were called the Grateful Decorators, and
Okay.
they were house painters, and they used all the like traditional Victorian colors.
Okay.
These like watermelon pinks and stuff like that, like really like
They
traditional
rich
Victorian
and rich
colors.
the richness of the so that then you end up
Yeah,
with
and like mustard yellows, and really just cool houses.
it
And
almost
yeah,
sounds like the hate, like down where
right,
where Zuck
right. I mean,
bought his house and everything, and with all the beautiful houses that have been redone in traditional,
yeah, Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, they had a Terrapin Station uh like street sign like right there on their front porch. So I mean,
Nice.
yeah, it that they were cool guys. They all lived in this big house, right on the main street, and yeah, they did some neat things for the town.
They
It was a
didn't
cool place.
they didn't follow the band, but they did paint houses, huh?
I would imagine they did both.
That at some point
I
they're
would imagine they did both. At some point, they stopped in Seacliff. They got maybe they hit Jones Beach Theater and then got
right,
lost
got lost.
trying to leave. Ended up
Oh.
in Seacliff and started painting houses
Well, we're at a
because
coast. Why
there
go
weren't
back to
enough
the other
buses.
one? It
Right, there
looked
weren't enough
it
buses.
looks
So
enough like
here's a
San Francisco will stay.
right, right, right.
Nice.
Um, but
So
yeah, it was a really cool place to grow up.
so it sounds like you've got
Really cool.
what kind of cool memories can you share from growing up on the coast? So does it change the way I, I
Yeah,
I grew up on the
it
coast of a
changed.
lake, but the Great
Yeah,
Lakes are
it's
like
different.
huge.
It's a little different because I live in Michigan now.
Okay.
And we're, whatever, 30 minutes over to the lake.
Mm,
But it's just different when it's the ocean.
I agree.
It's different. It's a lot different. And I mean, it changes. I don't know. I mean, I don't know because I didn't grow up next to a big lake,
Well, no,
but,
no, I was, yeah, no, I'm interested in your experiences, brother. No, I agree.
but like staring out, over the open ocean and knowing that there's nothing between like you and Europe
Right, right.
is is pretty neat. I mean, it makes you I mean, you're always kind of aware of how insignificant you are. I mean, even the Great Lakes, they get big waves and they have tides and
Mm-hmm.
all of that, but not like the ocean. I mean, the
All
power
right.
and sheer force of the ocean will remind you very fast of
November, no,
how
watching November oceans, watching big waters in November, that gray
right.
steel as the
Yeah.
storms roll in. I personally love going to the beach in November. It's not like you're gonna swim anyways. I love the Atlantic and
Right.
all, but it's not like you really want to get
It's
in it.
cold.
Yeah,
It's cold.
yeah. You
And
don't
it
want to go
stays
there.
cold late.
Right. But that man, watching the ocean in the winter is like another love all in itself as far as big water.
Yeah.
It's like a
Yeah.
different world, a different color, a
Hmm.
different palette. Like somebody showed up to paint something different for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we went to the ocean all the time. I mean, I would cut school in high school, go down, down to the beach. Um, and because I mean, yeah, it was like a 20-minute drive down to the South Shore, and we would just go down to the ocean. Yeah, Jones Beach. Um, oh, it was great. And yeah, you learn real quick to not turn your back on the ocean, they say. Never turn
Mm-hmm.
your back on the sea. I remember
Never.
Hurricane Bob. Yeah, it was like the early 80s. Hurricane Bob. No, late 80s, early 90s. That's when it was. Hurricane Bob. And we were out in well, the hoity-toity people would say we were out in Southampton, but we had my grandparents had bought like a summer home in Shinnecock,
Okay.
which is like just short
Yeah,
of the
I
Hamptons.
know where it is. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just
There's
that
the golf
outside,
courses there.
right?
Yeah, there's a reservation. The Shinnecock tribe is there. Um, it was a really great little shack of a house, right on a little inlet with a sandbar, and I mean it
Mm,
was really cool.
yeah.
But it was not like fancy Southampton living. Certainly
Not
not.
life in the Hamptons, you know.
It was more like a Jackson Pollock drinking himself to death kind of house. Um, but it was cool. But at Hurricane Bob, we were out there, um, and as soon as it was over, my parents, man, they would get arrested for this now. They took us out to the ocean to see the waves after the
Ooh.
hurricane, and they let my brother and I go swimming. I mean, I had to have been maybe 10, my brother maybe 15. And I mean, yeah, they let us go swimming. You would dive in, and by the time you could get up for air, you were maybe half a mile down the beach. Like the current would
Whoa.
just, and I mean, you feel just you feel that power.
There's
that force, and you realize that you are just at the whim of the
mm-hmm,
universe. And so you learn that
perspective.
kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah. Growing up like swimming in the ocean and being around the ocean, that just yeah, I'd say it added to my outlook on life for sure,
I
for sure.
connect to that so deeply. So what I did for about 15 years was I drove truck, primarily over the eastern part of the United States, but it was
Yeah,
because I really wanted to be able to travel, but I had to make a living.
yeah,
And I was always moved, moved, big water, big mountains, big
yeah,
forest. So, like when you
yeah.
get in, there are moments where you just go, oh, my priorities and my problems are so small in comparison that the idea I'm running around in circles like this matters
Hmm.
is absolutely ridiculous. That in comparison, I keep a rock on my desk that is, I don't know how many millions of years it represents, but man, it's got straight hard lines all the way through it going for a way. And it may only be hundreds of
Right,
years or thousands of years, but it
right.
reminds me every time I look at it that I wouldn't be a blip. I wouldn't even show up relative to, when you start talking about real time, like
Hmm.
billions and, millions of
Oh
years and
yeah.
all of that. So how do you work?
Um, I don't know. Yeah, I like that question. Because I hate that question.
Right? I know
Like
I'm with
I
you.
we just had friends over for dinner the other night, and it always comes up, new friends. So what do you do? You know, what do you do? I don't know, man. Um,
That's
what do you do?
I spend days
I
on the radio talking to people just because I like it.
right. I mean, I do whatever I feel like most of the time. No, I like for work. I'm a stay-at-home dad, full time currently, and then I bake bread part time
Ooh, that sounds
on
good.
the side. I used to be full time baking, but then the kid came and
So,
adjustments had to be made.
bread at home or bread at a bakery? Are you getting up early and
At,
going to
at a
make bread?
Yeah, at a bakery, yeah, and we crank it out.
You're me.
Um,
You get that you're just me. That I mean, I will wax poetic about how the fact of the job, the other job I really want to have right now is to
uh,
get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and go pound dough. And everybody
yeah,
looks at me like, you're a nut. And I'm like, okay.
the
Yeah, go
it
ahead.
takes a certain kind of person. It takes a certain kind of crazy, I think, and I mean that in the nicest way possible.
I do too.
To
You're wearing my
Because
sweatshirt.
right, because you gotta I mean, it's about priorities, really, when it comes down to the time of it. Where I get the latest I'm home from work is like 11 o'clock in the morning. That
Right.
saves the bulk of my day. And, I don't have to stress about running around to get to the bank before, it closes, or, the post office. It just,
It
it's a
happens.
lifestyle choice,
So
and I don't have a lot of the stress that a lot of people have. But I mean, it is hard. I go to sleep at, 8:30 at night, and I'm up by 2 a.m., and I'm in the building throwing around 100-pound tubs of dough by 3 a.m.
oof,
It's
right?
it's tough work. It's tough work,
It's
but
real. People don't understand that making bread is really making bread is
yeah,
a labor.
yeah,
And
yeah. I
the
mean, we're
reason why,
putting out like 1,000 pieces of bread in a morning,
oof,
and
oof.
it's from like four people,
So okay,
and it.
what's your this is a bread guy's bread question. What's your favorite bread? Like when like what I mean? And if you
I
say
don't know
if
if
you
my
say
favorite
ciabatta,
bread
I hang up
exists.
because that's made up.
No, I don't know if my favorite bread exists, honestly. I don't. We've started doing this thing in the bakery where we grade a loaf of bread every day. We
Right?
cut it open and eat it, and it's a really useful thing. But I can't give anything a 10 because I don't know. I'll stop looking.
Right? Right.
I'll stop trying to improve the bread if it gets a 10. If it's perfect,
My
there's
10.
no.
I have a
You know,
10. I think I have a 10. but I
Right.
doubt she could even make it anymore. No, it's my mom's Scotch farm bread, brother. It's like,
Okay.
oh, dude,
Okay.
it would come out warm, and it's like the brownest, richest bread with like,
Yeah.
got oats all over the top of it, and you just it's got
Mhm.
heat hot with some butter, and you just cut a slice out of it, and you just sit there, and it's just like it's not right. It's just not right. It's
If it's not right, I mean, I don't want to be right. That
right,
kind of thing.
right,
Warm bread with butter
absolutely.
on it.
Oh, and
But
so I'll give
we
my
do all
mom a
like
10.
sourdoughs.
Ooh,
We
fan of
do
sour.
all pretty much everything is sourdough that we do,
Okay.
and mostly whole grains. All I think we are just about 100% like local organic grain at this point.
That's beautiful. I
I know
honestly,
that
oh, go ahead.
our white flour is organic, but I don't know where it comes from. The furthest I think any of our grain comes from is Ohio.
Down my way.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, and a lot of it is grown just right here around. We do a lot of business with one of the local farms that grows stuff like specifically for us.
Mm.
Um, and I mean, we're getting in 4 or 5 thousand pounds of grain every 2 weeks from
Oh,
them,
wow.
and we mill it in house. And so
Oh,
I mean,
wow. Okay. So you're really
we're
grinding all the
really
way down. Yeah.
yeah. We the boss bought a like a granite mill
Mm.
a couple of years ago. We've just steadily been
Strap
increasing.
a couple of you guys to a round thing to go around, and
Right,
I mean, in no
right,
time you're in work. I mean,
right,
unless you're next to a river, you know.
right, right. Now,
That
fortunately, this one has a motor, but think we don't need. We thought about buying a horse, but so we try to be as whole grain and organic and as fresh grains as possible.
I
Um,
honestly
it's
believe.
really healthsome bread.
Yeah, I think that the whole take on currently people claiming the wheat allergy thing,
Mm.
I think we have
Hmm.
Monsanto to blame more than the wheat. So I'm big on doing what you're doing because I've had friends that are like, "Oh no, you don't understand.
Yeah.
I can't eat any wheat." And then when they have fresh bread made from fresh
Hmm.
wheat, they're like, "Doesn't hurt.
Hmm.
Why is it?"
And the whole grains, you know, um, they actually help I'm blanking on
The
the
roughage,
term. The yeah
the roughage helps with
uh,
the
well
pooping and the
a little
roughage. Oh, different.
the the man why am I blanking on the word? Um, in any case, the
Oh,
brand is
okay, the
sharp.
brand. Okay, okay.
The brand is sharp, and so it actually cuts the gluten. So if you're
Oh,
eating like whole, really fresh whole grain breads, not like nothing against Pepperidge Farm, but like their whole grain bread is good and healthy, but they don't leave the brand the way the brand
the
should
way the
be,
brand should be. But Pepperidge
and
Farm remembers.
they do, but they forget about the brand.
Right.
So, but in any case, like that brand is sharp and it'll cut the gluten. So a lot of
Mm,
people that
okay.
are gluten will say quote unquote intolerant. It's just they're eating the wrong kind of bread, or like spelt bread is one of my favorites. We make a spelt loaf.
Ooh,
Uh,
okay.
and they're very low gluten. It's a very low gluten grain, and so a lot of people that are gluten intolerant can eat that bread,
Seem okay with it.
and they're just fine. It has nothing, it's just you got to find, it's complete health.
Right.
Find what works for you,
Well,
and
I'm big on lately just looking at people and going, I'm telling you, if it's got a list of ingredients on the back of it, it came in a package. I'm not saying it's going to kill you, but I'm saying it's not your best choice.
right,
That if there's a
right,
laundry list of ingredients, like I still love fried onions, and don't get me wrong, I still eat my Frenches now and then. But if I go down to my Asian grocery, I can get fried onions that there are two ingredients:
yeah,
onions and coconut oil, and that's
right,
it. And
right,
that
right,
you just look at it and go, okay, that's got to be better for me. How
yeah,
do how do
yeah.
you play? What when you think of okay, so
Well,
you've
I bake
pounded dough,
bread.
you've watched right, exactly. I love this answer. That
Work is play for me. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, you got to do something else. Is the way I've always looked at
right,
it.
it's a combination. Like one of the
Yeah.
things we talked about was when you think of work, play, pray, You go, wait a minute. If you're not doing them all at
Mhm.
the same time, you ain't doing it right.
You're not doing it right. No, exactly. It's the Jesuits have a saying, and I'm probably gonna missay it
Beat
because
them
my
till they
Latin
use
is
their right hands.
that might be it. But it's what is it? Ora es labora. Prayer is work, and then they say
Hmm.
the opposite, labora es ora. You know,
Work is
work is
prayer.
prayer. And I'll throw play into the mix.
Absolutely. Work,
I
pray,
make
play. That it's
I
the journey. That and if you don't combine the bunch, I go
mhm,
to a Buddhist class where every 10 seconds, my good friend Violet goes, meditation is non-distraction. So
right,
that every moment is available as a meditation. It's your
yeah,
grand tea ceremony, if you will. This
yeah.
life
I
of
mean,
ours.
when I'm in there making bread, um, just because it's an easy example, I'm being mindful of the
Mm-hmm.
dough. You
Yeah.
know, the way that it feels, the way that it stretches. That's going to tell me things about it. How much time it's going to need to prove. You know, how forceful I'm going to need to be when shaping.
Abs-
I'm feel
it's a
I'm
real
getting
thing. That
if
when
I'm
my
not mindful
Yeah.
of those
And it's a texture
if I'm
thing.
not mindful of
It's
what the
a
bread tells me,
mm,
I'm not gonna hear it.
right?
My another hobby I have is like bonsai.
Oh.
If I don't listen to my trees, I'm gonna kill them real quick.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm watering on a schedule instead of when they need it, um,
You're not
I'm
listening to
gonna
them.
kill that. I'm gonna kill that tree real quick. I'm not listening to it. Another hobby is pipe smoking for me, pipe
Mm-hmm.
tobacco. If I'm not paying attention and listening to the tobacco in the pipe, the way that I am breathing,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not tuned into that, I'm going to have a real terrible experience.
Yeah,
You
you're
know,
gonna take too deep, and suddenly you're like, oh damn, that did not feel
well,
right.
yeah, or it's going to be acrid tasting. You get going too hot and almost like God, pipe tobacco can start to taste like pee. You know,
You know what? As
like,
so, I have my grandfather's pipes here, and I have
right,
pipe tobacco. I use pipe tobacco in a variety of ways. I sometimes add them to medicinal products to prove to people
right,
that using traditional paper, you can make something
yeah,
taste and exactly like, for instance, if you were trying to roll a blunt,
right,
but it doesn't look like that at all. Like, no, you
right,
get
right,
people will go, well, but I don't smoke totobacco. I'm like, yeah, you do, and that's actually what you happen to like. That's why you go. That's how I want to do that.
right, right, right,
Totally medicinal.
right. But
I'm in Ohio, so everything's still. I have to say medicinal 10 times over. Medicinal,
yeah, see,
medicinal, medicinal,
you
as opposed to you up north where
come up north, we're legal here, man. We
I
we we
I've
can
been
play.
talking to a couple guys in the industry. I've got a cousin up there in the industry, but I have a ton of family up that way. I'm
Yeah.
originally from, oh, I suppose Ypsi up in Michigan, technically.
Okay. Okay.
Rochester was where I was born, and then we grew up near Ann Arbor.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I've got a ton of family out then towards the lake too, towards Portage and stuff like that. So,
Yes.
yeah, no, I plan on one of the big plans this summer is to make is to learn how to speak English. Actually, I was
Well,
gonna
there you
make a
go.
big plan about Michigan, but
Yeah.
ESL is the way I'm going with that instead. What do you love,
The way
Charlie?
gas is going.
Right?
Well, as much as I can, I love. I think the everything is the same thing to me. It's
Mhm.
all I don't know. Everything is so connected. I I have a hard time
Splitting it out like
not
that.
splitting it out like that. I mean, yeah, I could give the standard. I love my family. My daughter is everything to me.
Right?
But I can care for my daughter by planting a tree.
Date I'll never
I
know.
can,
Right?
I can care for my neighbor by, picking a stick up from their yard.
Hmm.
Like I can keep my world. I don't know. I can take care of the world, and that is taking care of everything.
I like
You
to
know,
tell
if
people to be selfish, that it actually ends up being a good person feels good and you sleep better. Like you get to
right,
rest your head down at night and not be going, "Oh, I
right,
should have done that and I should have done this." No, you did the best you could and you get to the end of the day and you do the best you can tomorrow. It's all it's much
right,
simpler. There's less to figure out if you're not trying to figure out who to be.
right. And I mean, and that, so when I think about, I don't know, like I remember listening to a Thich Nhat Hanh guided meditation
Okay.
where he was having you connect with a tree, and just realizing that, there is no distinction between myself and the tree.
Right.
That as I am breathing out the carbon dioxide, the tree is absorbing it. As it is emitting oxygen, I'm absorbing. We are, you know,
Connected.
intricately connected,
Hmm.
and the tree can't exist without me, and I can't exist without the tree, and it's all just different manifestations of, you know the formless. It's
Right.
just the form. It's just forms of the formless.
For me,
And
it's that I
and
can
so
see it
anything
in
that I
everything.
do,
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
anything that I do is ultimately done unto myself, as it were. You know,
Hmm.
like caring for the tree is self care, and caring for um, my daughter is self care,
Hmm.
and all of that, because we're all in this together.
Meeting my world compassionately includes me.
Right.
You know,
Right.
the hardest part for people to understand because I'm incredibly okay. So I spend a lot of time talking to my pets. Um,
It's a
Cats,
noble.
axolotls, share an apple with my tortoise or the iguana. You know, you get the apple and they like it. They prefer it chewed up, kind of half mashed. They're like, oh yeah,
Ah,
half mashed apple. So I'll chew up a little bit of
yeah.
apple and you share this apple with this living thing, and it's just like I. The other one I do is when I have them, I try to apples I really love currently. They're a brand name, so I'm not going to name them, but they're like the juiciest apples I've ever eaten. What I do is I do this grounding exercise where I spend
Hmm.
time with my apple. And I look at
Hmm.
the apple, and if it's not perfect, I look at how it's perfect for me and think about everything it took to make an apple. And then I take a bite and I feel it. I take my time and I every bite. And it's really about no matter how low your day was, live in a world where you can just go pick fruit off a tree.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
can get overwhelmed by the rest of it, but in the end, you live in a garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you're
Yeah.
connected to this thing, and food comes from it, and you give to it. And now I'm with you. What are you afraid of, brother? So you and I both love everything, but what are we afraid of?
I believe my
This
answer
was the
was the
GOP.
GOP, and not to be, and I don't say that politically.
No, I
Oddly
understand
enough,
that oddly
you
we're in a
know,
weird spot.
we are in a very weird spot. 20 years ago, I had a lot of friends that were Republican, and
Mm-hmm.
we maintained a very healthy, friendly relationship because our differences were economic.
Right.
Our differences were purely, we wanted the same thing.
But,
We wanted everybody
right.
to live a happy and successful and healthy life, whatever that all entails. We just had different ideas about how to get there
Mm-hmm.
and the purpose of government in that. Now, things are different. I mean, there's a war on truth that has been
That's what
going on
scared me
for
the most.
years.
What scared
Yeah.
me the most was people I trusted were suddenly, as I would say things like, no, I don't really have a side in this, but I believe in the scientific method and it kind of suggests this. And you know what? I've looked back at this.
Hmm.
In the
Hmm.
end,
I mean,
we've gone at
even
least 15
before it
shows
became,
since the pandemic was mentioned, but the pandemic hit, and then it was like the idea that people didn't understand virology at all. That, wait a minute.
right.
That I'm not picking a side here. I go look back at history. I understand how viruses work. I get
Hmm.
that it's random. We're not talking about somebody having control over the way in which viruses mutate. more people they have to mutate in, the more like you know what, for me it was a science
Right.
discussion. And then there were
Right.
people going, "Well, no, but on Facebook I saw pandemic." And these but these were people whose opinions I had trusted.
Right.
I mean, it's gotten
Right.
so crazy so that I mentioned Orange Man last week or beginning of this week. I forget. Orange Man
Yeah.
came up in conversation and I called him the Orange Man. I wasn't even it was a discussion that wasn't even specific to Trump. But it
Right.
was I got a hater immediately.
Mm.
Like so when I talked about Vladimir Putin, I immediately got somebody calling um to stand up for why Ukraine was bad and Russia was good. And when I talked about Orange Man specifically, so I hope somebody's listening. I really don't have a side in this. I'm just trying to be rational.
Right. Right. I mean, like for me, like where it changed and why I'm afraid of it is the just the refusal to expel certain elements from the
Mm,
party.
clean your own
You
house.
know, right. The refusal to distance themselves from,
Yeah.
I mean, extremists.
I thought they were going to.
Um,
I really thought they were going to, and then they doubled down. That I
right.
thought for a minute the
And
direction it
that's
was going to go.
scary.
Yeah, that was like, wait a minute. The one that got to me, and it wasn't about sides. The one I fear is, I suggest, what do we always say? Chekhov says, if a
Right.
loaded gun is in the first act, it must be fired in the second act. And I see
Mhm.
January 6th as that, though, the decision to put the gun on the table. That
Right.
to officially say, well, maybe if we disagree, we'll change this by force. And I'm not even saying that group of people ends up doing it, but what it does is it brings forward the possibility. Like, well, maybe if we don't agree, we could just kick everybody's ass.
Right.
Yeah, and
That's the
that's
American way, though, isn't it?
right. Yeah, right, right. Hey, we
Doesn't
could
get
get.
much more American than that.
All I know is if the GOP starts handing out blankets, I ain't taking any.
No, no, of course not. Of course not.
Lessons,
But
lessons.
but no, and then as a father of a daughter, the things that are that they are pushing right now
Oh
are
my God.
incredibly scary to me.
Yeah,
And that's just, I mean, that's yeah, yeah, that's frightening. That's the everybody wants a better, more free world for their children,
right.
is my kind of thinking. But now I've diverged.
Yeah.
We our I hate the idea of two sides, but it's like our country is diverging from even what we think a better and more free and more stable life for our children looks like.
Well, and that's kind of what we're trying to actively do here at the studio. The idea is
Mm,
that if you provide a real place where people feel like they can be themselves, be seen, put
right.
out their views, whether it be we work I know you love music. My producer is actually a
Right.
musician as well. We work on a bunch of music. The only part of that what thing, if you ever find it, is me saying where's the line. That part's me.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but I think of it when I quit trusting my ability, my perspective, knowing that one of the scientific wisdom is that it lies to you. I
Hmm.
became driven by seeing other perspectives. And then I began to realize that the more of them I saw, the more they felt like they were seen, or I felt like I was seen.
Hmm.
And my theory on how to change the world is you simply talk to people and keep going. Have you met my friends? Because then
Right.
you get them down to the nitty gritty of these kinds of questions. You know,
Mhm.
these simple, down to earth questions. We agree
Right.
that I don't get into it with
Right.
so
Right.
what is your outlook? Because it ends up all have similar kind of experiences and are seeing it a little different.
Hmm.
So, what
Oh, yeah.
do you feel like you know of the things in the world that you can count on? What do you know? What's
Well, there
a
you go. That's what
right?
gets you. That's what
That's
gets
me
you
all
to
day
like
long.
the heart of my perspective.
I don't know. I'm with
I
you.
don't know. I don't know. I know very little, and I mean, and it's and so I guess I could add that to my my what am I afraid of? What do I fear? Question would be people who are certain.
Mm.
I am very afraid of people who know things beyond a single doubt.
Because in
Um,
knowing they're not willing to accept. I read a thing.
right.
The most important thing we could teach our kids in school is they were asking teachers, what's the most important thing? That it's okay to be wrong. That being wrong means you're learning
Mhm.
something. That
Right.
embrace being wrong as often as you can. Because the more
Right.
often you're wrong, the more often you learn something.
Right. So I don't think I know anything with any certainty, you know. But because be, okay, so this is like my real perspective on basically everything. It all boils down to, we are subjective beings looking for an objective truth.
Hmm.
And that's
That's gets
I,
the
I would
core
say
right there.
that's an impossible task, isn't it?
Well,
That
we're on the same boat. I walk around looking at
the
everybody going, you know what, I don't know anything and I've never learned as much as when I accepted that.
exactly, because I mean, that's how you break down the filters of subjectivity. I don't think that it can ever, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I haven't attained. Maybe that's what happens when you attain Buddhahood, is you finally broken through that last filter of subjectivity. That is, because that's human nature, is to be
Mm,
subjective. Is,
right?
I mean, we have these filters that we encounter the world through, and you can't break them all, but you can try, and you can get through them. You can get really close. You can point at objective truth. I don't know that you can ever touch it, and
Right.
still be in this human subjective manifestation.
I
Um,
right?
so
There's
so
something to be
yeah,
said for that, right?
so if I knew, if I claimed to know objective 100% truth, I mean, I'd be lying.
Yeah,
I,
exactly. And I don't do that.
you
So
know,
sorry.
yeah.
I
So
look at
so
I
I
had
can't know anything.
I had a meeting the other day, and I'm a big one on I don't know. I have no problem looking at people going, no, sorry, I don't know. That I'm okay with that. That I was in this meeting and we were talking about something. I was like, no, you know what? I can look into that. The honest reality is no, I don't know, and I'm okay.
Hmm.
That I looked at this guy and I said, listen, I'm the one guy that's going to honestly tell you that over and over again. That should be your
Right.
touchstone as to for why you feel comfortable. I know that seems like counterintuitive, but I'm the guy
Hmm.
that doesn't know, will admit it and go figure it out, as opposed to going, you'd be fine.
Right. Or like, I mean, if I knew something, if okay, if I knew everything, we'll say, um, that's my perfect 10 loaf of bread. I get to stop looking. I get to stop
What's the
learning.
point?
I get to stop
I don't think
growing.
that point exists. I think
Right.
that there is always practice all the way down. That in the I suggest that we're already enlightened. That enlightenment isn't a place we're getting to; it's a place we're at, and
Mhm.
it's whether or not we can come to terms with it.
Right.
That
Right. I mean, I would put
brother, you are
forth.
already here. You are the Buddha in my eyes. Now, if I could
Right.
just accept it in the mirror.
Right. Right. And I mean, I would go. I would say the same applies. And I know you think about this often, that the similar ideas that cut through all the cultures and everything
Right.
that people miss. The idea that we were cast out of the Garden of Eden, right? I mean, who says that that's the way it was? It wasn't just our perspective changed,
I'll give you.
and we are still here in
I'll
the Garden of
I'll
Eden.
give
We
you
just
my
need to
Garden of
rake
Eden
some
version.
leaves.
Right. Oh
You
my
know,
God, clean it up. That
we just need to clean it up, and we're
my
right
take
back.
on the Garden of Eden, and it sounds like you're not quite to having a teenager yet. My
No,
take
no,
on the
thank God.
whole Adam and Eve Garden of Eden story is that it's strictly a story about what Dick's children become, and eventually they think they know it all, and you have to kick them out.
Yeah, she's 4, so I can't do that yet. But she's already there. She knows it
Right,
all.
right.
She is
I've got a
very
9 year
certain.
old in the house that's lots of opinions. Lots
Yeah,
of opinions.
yeah.
Got to that apple
She's very
early.
certain,
Thinks
and
she
I am
knows
very scared.
everything, right?
I'm very afraid of her. She knows a lot.
So, and what do you
Uh,
wish you know? I think it's almost covered in the I want to know it all, and I'm
yeah,
going with
I,
right.
I want to know it all. like anytime I come across something I don't know, I
Burst of
I
joy.
look it up. I look it up.
Yep.
Yeah, like I'm into bonsai trees and house plants and gardening and all that stuff. So I mean, I spend an exorbitant amount of time researching plants and soil types and fertilizers and soil chemistry
Yep.
and stuff like that. Completely, you know, I don't know, excessive amounts
No,
of information to like grow a pretty flower, but I don't. It increases
not really.
my understanding of it.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and the helping of helping that thing thrive. I don't consider myself as like you know growing a bonsai tree or growing a sunflower.
Co-creation. Right.
I facilitate
Right.
its life.
Right.
I give it what it needs, and it does all the work.
Well, and I try to think of
Yeah.
us from that direction too, almost. Like everybody's like, I'm
Mhm.
going to decide how my life goes. I'm like, no, you got to realize you're a co-creator with this whole universe thing. That
Mhm.
you thinking you have control of it will make you really miserable.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If you come at it like, hey, let's cook something together, we're two chefs, you'll be okay. Like
Right.
if you give the rest of it room to exist and bring itself, and then bring yourself, then you got a party. But if you're sure you're gonna make it
Mhm.
all get in a line and dance, oof, long
Mhm.
days.
Yeah.
We've been
Oh
there,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. I used to. I mean, I spent an exorbitant amount of time trying to do that,
Right.
trying to trying to order my world the way I thought my world was supposed to look. Um, and then I don't know. I struggled for a really long time doing that.
Feel you.
I struggled a real long time doing it. So yeah. I mean, learning to let go was hard, but it's gotten easier. I mean, nobody is perfect. I am no exception to that. I
All
wish I
practice,
was.
man. It's all lesson, it's all practice.
I wish I was more, you know, freewheeling
Makes
than
you
I
perfect,
am
man. You're
to
you.
to a certain. Yeah,
You bring
yeah.
your
I'm
perspective. Like,
I'm
I
working
think,
at it.
well, the
That's the
greatest
goal, is to
value,
just keep working.
right? The answer to what is the meaning of life is keep questioning. Like, wait a
Yeah,
minute, it's a trick question. Well, life was always a trick question, wasn't it? So what's the
yeah.
surprise?
I mean, that's the cosmic joke.
Right.
Is is that the meaning of life is life, and
Or
that's it.
42.
Right.
Suck up the probability drive and we'll get right out of here.
Right. Right.
It's
I mean, yeah, that's the joke, really, and I find it hilarious that
I
people
laugh
get so
often.
hung up.
I laugh often that realizing that if you slow down, look at the ramifications of the worst points in your life. You
Mm.
made it through and they got you here.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Here's pretty
I,
good. So I guess I could wail about the other stuff, but it seems like that was part of the path to get here.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we haven't touched on it, but like, I mean, I was a drop dead gutter drunk for a very long time, and I wouldn't change any of that
Right.
because here I am, you know, I haven't had a drink in 11 years, you know.
Congratulations.
I, Thank you. It's hard work.
Hmm.
It's hard not drinking. Um, but you know,
Thank God you're in a
fortunately,
legal state for other things.
fortunately, the weed helps with that. Yeah,
Right.
the Willie Nelson program saved his life. If it's good enough to save Willie, it's good enough for
Saved
me.
willing.
Um, and so, but I wouldn't change any of those times I was, homeless or hungry or whatever, because it got me here. I'm here,
Right.
I'm living in a nice house in a nice neighborhood, married to a college professor. I got a 4-year-old kid, like
You're living the
what?
hippie dream. Wait a
I
minute.
mean, I
You've got a
really am.
college professor?
Yeah, yeah,
I know
she's
I've watched Animal House, I've watched Old School, I know that this is the dream. The hippie
she's
dream.
great. Yeah,
Nice.
it's awesome. I'm like the arm candy faculty husband, you know?
Nice.
It's
I am
great.
proud of you, brother. So proud.
I I'm living the dream. Really am. I really am. No, I mean, like, I don't I don't know how a guy like me ends up in a life like this, but if the path that I had to take to get here is the path that I had to take to get here, well then shoot, I'd take that same path
Tomorrow,
every
right?
single time. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? Because you know what, I read, and it's hard to remember in your lowest moments that when you get to the other side, usually there was a lot of lesson, there was a lot of something you got out of it, there was amazing
Mm,
things that came from it, and we lose obviously focus on that in the midst. But you look back, I call it the path of the sledgehammer, as
mm.
opposed to getting lost totally in like scripture of one faith or another. You just beat your head with a sledgehammer until you can better see through the veil.
Yeah. You
Like,
gotta break the
oh,
filters.
eventually I guess I don't have an ego because I'm a dumbass and I
Yeah.
better get it out of the way. I don't trust it.
Right. 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 Yeah. I mean, I was talking to somebody at work a week or so ago, and I mean, it basically the conversation came down to like, I am a total screw up and I love it. I've
Right?
done really well for myself just screwing up my whole life.
Falling my
Um,
way forward, catching myself right before I hit. But yeah, no, I'm
right.
definitely
Yeah.
falling here.
Yeah. Yeah. And somehow, I mean, I've had a lot of fun.
Hmm.
I have
Right?
had a whole lot of fun along the way, you know, and a whole lot of really low moments, but a whole lot of fun, you know, squandering every opportunity I've ever been given.
Right? I've done
And
that. I've done some of that.
somehow, you know, I've managed to do all right just by sticking it out and learning, continuing to learn and grow. I mean, that's really the meaning of life. It's just to keep learning and growing.
Right? Right. That's the
You're
why you're
never
here. Right.
you're never finished, and that's why we get multiples, right?
Right. Well,
Because
I used to
you're never
write
done.
it's all chess all the way down. You
Mm.
know, so you better watch your moves. And then I put at the bottom I said chuckle. Who'd have said you can play as many times as you want?
Right,
And
right. You really can.
I go with I don't know. I've decided not to be attached to the before or the after. I've got some
Mm,
pieces that feel like memories further back.
mm.
You know, I don't know what comes next, so I've kind of just focused on abiding here. That
Right,
I've given up
right. I,
so that that whole combination of I don't even know really what reincarnation means. Like whether I would be attached to the idea of people come back as who they are or whether I like to think of a big soup dipper. So people die,
mm,
and then there's this dipper that is the universe, and they take another dip out, and it's got a little bit of a bunch of this. And so
mm.
it's everything kind of is constantly permutating. But who knows? We shall see. You know what?
I mean, I go with the physics.
It's the next adventure. Oh yeah,
I,
a little
I just go
quantum to
with the
go.
physics.
Yep.
Yeah, that you know, matter cannot be created or destroyed,
Right.
and
It's got to move around somehow.
so you know, this manifestation of me will be gone someday, but and you know, and there will never be another manifestation of like this me,
They'll never be an identical. They'll be right.
right? But the energy, the matter that makes up this manifestation will continue on in the universe. I mean, that's what reincarnation is for me. It's just
That makes I like that. I
the
like that.
string of
The idea that you are still that no matter what
the
happens, you are the
continuance,
universe. Om.
the
That
continuance.
Om is
Yeah,
Om is Om is Om is Om. You're
right,
always so
right,
close to Om.
right,
Never leave Om
right,
without it.
right. Right. I mean,
Om
Tim
is where the
Hans
fires are.
was saying that like when it's his birthday, he hopes people will wish him happy continuance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because what's a birthday? It's just taking from one form and manifesting it in this form.
Well, it's keeping track of
That's
laps. It's like NASCAR, but in
right. Well,
space.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But like the first birthday, the one where you were birthed,
Right.
that's just you're just taking from one form into another, and
Mhm.
it's just a continuance, and then this form will go to another, and I mean, who cares if it's a bug or,
Yeah, I'm not
a
as attached. I'm
person
not as
or,
attached
yeah,
to
I
that
don't
part
care.
either, right? That
Right.
I'll get
I'm just a bread baker. I'll do whatever,
right. Well,
Like,
they'll some temples get lost on, you know what? They're constantly looking for enlightenment for all sentient beings. And I'm like, man, I got a dog that's got I've had dogs that felt like they had it figured out better than I did. You know, there were
oh, they sure
dogs that
do.
along the way that definitely were like, no, I'm going, you're not, dude.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Right.
had a big bull
Right.
mastiff, 180 pounds. He knew the definition of chill. Like, if he
Right.
wanted somebody to not go somewhere, he would just turn his body, never growl,
Mhm.
never say a word. Don't get me wrong, 180 pounds of dog, he could stop anybody just by turning. But,
Right. Right.
that lay down, let kids crawl all over him, sleep all the
Mm.
time. I
They
know
figured it
he's
out.
made it,
They
and I
know
don't know
it.
if I'm making it this time.
Definitely. Definitely. I'll take another couple rounds though.
Right. Yeah.
I think
No.
I got a couple. I think I got another couple rounds
Another
in me. I
couple
still
rounds
have a
in you.
lot to. I got so much left to learn, and I don't think. I mean, I'm going to be 40 here soon, so I'm I would say middle aged,
Right.
given and I mean I don't think 40 more years is enough time to 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 learn
To
everything
taste all
that
the
I need.
strawberries.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I got you. I got you.
There's a lot of strawberries. There's a lot of salty snacks that I might enjoy. There's
Ladies, ladies.
there's a there's a lot of stuff out there that I want to see and do, and I don't know. I'll take another couple of rounds.
I have like 7.5 billion perspectives to work through, and I'm only like barely into like I'm not even in double digits yet, so I gotta stay for a minute.
Yeah, there's work and play and prayer to be done.
it, it's the absolute truth. You know what? It has
And
been such a joy to have you, Charlie. I love the conversation because I've always known that we vibed on a lot of levels. It really
yeah, it's my pleasure. I
it
When I first ran across you, I think was in the beginners Buddhism group,
yep.
and
Before I got chucked.
um,
I got chucked out of that one. I was a
did
bad
you?
player. I started
Oh,
Universal
bummer.
Sangha with some people, and
Yeah.
he got offended that the other people were running ads, and so he booted
Oh,
me.
I see.
My
I see.
family's still all there though.
Right. There you go. I'm still there. I'll
Right?
keep you posted.
I appreciate that more than you know. I used to have a guy that there was a guy that was giving us his experiences with guru worship, and I miss hearing about that. And actually,
Mm.
that guy's a friend of mine. I can't think of his name right this minute. Berkeley, maybe last name. I don't know.
Yeah,
Anyways,
that's one of those things where people get hung up is yeah,
yeah.
and like things like guru worship, and uh, I'll leave with my favorite, as far as Buddhism goes. My favorite would be Wang Bo, who was a really forceful Chan Buddhist teacher. And the story goes, the student asks, "What is the Buddha?" And he says, "The Buddha is the shit wiping stick." Just to
Accurate.
show that like
Accurate.
you shouldn't be deifying or worshiping, or it's all the same thing, so what difference does it make if it's a Buddha or something you wipe your butt with?
It's
you
still
know
is it universe? Yes or no? Yes or no?
yeah, absolutely. It's just various manifestations of the universe.
My mom came to me and said, after taking these meditation classes, I think I really made deciding on Buddha. And I said, you're so silly. You always were. You're part of the universe. It's just a thing. It's not
Yeah.
like you don't have to do anything with that information. Are you?
you,
Aren't you?
you,
Yes, you are.
you, you
Okay.
don't see a lot of Buddhist missionaries, because they figure you'll be born a Buddhist eventually, so they don't need to convert you now.
I
They're
worried
like, hey, here's this thing that I do. You might enjoy it,
maybe that's the
but it's
GOP's
up to
plan.
you if you want to do it or not.
Just make enough babies randomly so that the GOP will have more babies because that's the only way that
Yeah,
anyways.
right, right,
I
right.
totally yeah. The reality is it's in outlook. It's in perspective. It's in how
Uh-huh.
we share this. I call it ambient knowledge. I call it a willingness to go, no, there's knowledge all around me. I don't know a
Hmm.
lot, and every second, every moment, there's something if I look
Mm.
hard enough. Brother, that was thank
Absolutely.
you so much. I had such a
Absolutely.
great time.
Oh, my pleasure. I enjoy being here.
You know what? I hope we get to do it more. Actually, what I'd like, you know what? Let's
Yeah.
do more of this. And you've got a
Sure.
page, we've got a page. We'll post stuff on pages. And
Yeah, we'll do. We'll do.